See. Okay. I think we're recording now, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Alrighty. So let's start that over. So we want to welcome today Robert Snyder. Robert Snyder is the founder and president of Innovation Elegance LLC. Robert's 30-year career spans roles such as developer, project management, change management, sales enablement, and the performing arts, which we just learned about not too long ago, which is really, really exciting. His career path includes corporate roles, consulting roles, startups, PMP, and agile certifications. He's performed in numerous vocal, dance, and theater ensembles. Robert earned his bachelor's in electric engineering from the University of Illinois and his MBA in strategy from the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University. Robert is publishing a series of books on methodology, innovation, elegance, transcending agile and ruthlessness and grace, with ruthlessness and grace, became available January 1st. And Innovation Portfolio, Five Verbs Shape Your Team's Legacy, aims to be available around March 1st, which is actually available now. So congratulations. And now, without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Robert Snyder.
Thank you, Randy, and thank you everyone for joining tonight. Quick audio check. Is my sound still okay?
It is. Sounds
Okay.
great.
I'd like to start this session with one of my favorite quotes. Nothing will change until the status quo is more painful than the transition. Nothing will change until the status quo is more painful than the transition. I could apply that cliche to our personal lives, a relationship, a job, a move. As business analysis professionals, as innovation professionals, we could apply that cliche to our business operations. But tonight's session applies that cliche to our business innovation methodology. Your status quo is some combination of two and a half software-centric methodologies, as if what makes innovation teamwork difficult is the software. As in, when a team gets itself into trouble, a programmer goes to a scrum master or a project manager and the sponsor and says, hey, that Python code I've been working on, really difficult. So sorry. That's not a thing. What makes innovation teamwork difficult is people. It's how we interact, govern, collaborate, or stink at collaborating. So formulating a people-centric methodology, now armed with 2 decades of lessons learned, should not make anyone's head explode. It's overdue, but the good news is that the pillars, the foundation of a people-centric methodology has metaphors that are fun, they're familiar, and financially they are really, really attractive. So that is why I call this material a people-centric methodology. And tonight's session uh, shares with you what it looks like. One of my favorite TED Talks, and again, as Randy mentioned, during the session, I welcome you, especially with we're a small, intimate crowd here. Feel free to take yourself off mute or drop something in the chat, a reaction, any thought bubbles above your head. Go crazy. It can be fun. An animated chat window can be just entertaining and fun. One of my favorite TED Talks is titled Start with Why. So let's start with why. Why this topic and why now? I believe that at the moment, for many innovation teams, teamwork is just more difficult than it should be. We have employees that, similar to teenagers, one unique trait about teenagers is they want the rights of adulthood without the responsibilities of adulthood. And we've got colleagues who want decision rights without decision responsibilities. That's a problem. We also have colleagues who feel they have authority, but they're not acting as if they also have accountability. Too often, the employee experience leaves a lot to be desired. And because of all the communication, the intensity, ambition that's going on, we are experiencing communication traffic jams. And last I checked, anything characterized with the word traffic jam means all the vehicles are slowing down. You might call yourself fast. I would argue you're more likely frantic if you agree you're in a communication traffic jam. Project success rates are not improving significantly as far as the statistics and the impressions that I'm hearing. And because of these communication traffic jams, um, at a business level or at a society level, there is very valuable innovation work that is not proceeding. It is idle. And because of these communication traffic jams, we just have a large backlog of idle but valuable innovation work. And on the other side of that supply demand curve, we have former coworkers, current coworkers who are underemployed or just unemployed. So there's a lot of idle work out there. There's a lot of idle workers, and this material aims to help with that by easing the traffic flow and converting communication traffic jams into communication symphonies. Why why would a company be motivated to transition its methodology? I believe that a poor methodology hurts and even ruins projects, jobs, work relationships, and our mental health. But a good methodology can help and nourish these same four things. What's the relationship between our methodology and our leaders and managers who come and go? A poor methodology is difficult for even good leaders and managers to run, rescue, execute. But a good methodology, anticipating mediocre leaders and managers, it's difficult for those poor leaders and managers to ruin. So I believe the blast radius of our methodology, it's a big deal. Another topic that has a huge blast radius is the topic of culture. I love that the topic of culture is becoming more and more common in these sorts of gatherings, in these sorts of events. But holy ambiguity, Batman. I believe that too often we leave these conversations about culture thinking, yes, that was great, but what am I going to do next? And so this material aims to reduce the ambiguity of what a healthy culture looks like. And many of us have different definitions of culture. And I found one a while back that was uniquely succinct, just two words. So that's the one I drag around with me. My favorite definition of culture is shared habits. Of course, this material is based on all three of my books. It's just two are available now. My third book will have to wait until next year because I'm a little bit exhausted from the first two. The agenda for this session. The first topic is the metaphor of an expectation factory. An expectation factory. The word factory might, some of us have a negative, immediate negative reaction to the word factory. So if if you don't like the word factory, then consider the word flow. I hope that the concept of workflow, work flowing at a reasonable, sustainable momentum is something attractive to you, and especially with this photo of a chocolate flow, a chocolate factory. The second topic tonight is empathy, which, like culture, is prone to a lot of ambiguity. I believe empathy is critical in today's cultures because it serves as a kind of lubrication for our factories, for our expectation factories. But empathy is prone to a lot of ambiguity. So I will share with you, depending on time, up to 5 different templates that try to minimize ambiguity about how to raise your team's empathy. So together, these templates for empathy and this metaphor of a factory, they're valuable, they're necessary, and they're great. But oh my God, are they dry and they're sterile? Where's the fun? Where's the romance? Where's the beauty? Where's the mischief? For all of these culture traits, I am inspired by the performing arts. So, specifically, the art of improv, partner dance, music, and theater. So, the third agenda item tonight is what can businesses or what can innovation teams learn, benefit, and profit by adopting and imitating the amazing collaborative culture traits of the performing arts? If time allows, and in the PDF you will receive either before we hang up or Randy can circulate afterwards. This material tonight is absolutely controversial, so I should expect some percentage of you, some fraction of you, to be skeptical. I have, 45 minutes to persuade you, but there are slides in this deck that anticipate skepticism because that's human and it's natural, and you're smart and you're experienced, and this stuff is new. And I've got one slide about how these materials and this methodology can ease these traffic jams, address idle work, and address idle workers. So, in effect, helping the job market. And the takeaways. I imagine that you are familiar with a framework called RACI. It's got 4 adjectives. It's had 2 decades to solve those problems from the earlier slide. It has not succeeded. So we'll take a look at, well, what if we reimagine these 4 adjectives and replace them with 5 verbs? These templates that I will show you, I hope your first reaction is a big shrug. I hope you think, what could a template do to really shape culture? And one of my favorite, I believe the author of this quote, his name is W. Edward Demings, and one of his quotes is small hinges swing large doors. And so, as I give you a tour of these templates, I hope you will agree with me that these templates are a kind of small hinge that swing the large door of shaping culture. And finally, as you can imagine applying these tools to an environment who might have low discipline and low empathy, and you can imagine these tools will help me raise my team's discipline and raise my team's empathy. It will also raise your self confidence, your self esteem, and healthy humility so that you can lead, you can have the confidence to lead any kind of innovation team. Okay, first agenda item, factory, flow. If you have a negative reaction to this metaphor of factory, this word cloud tries to give examples of more inspiring language for factories. Um, I love taking an analogy of a pop singer or a performing artist. If you are a child of the 60s, you might remember the Rolling Stone in the United States, anyway, the Rolling Stones and the Beatles. They were factories of amazing music. More recently, there's a woman named Taylor Swift. She is a factory of amazing music, and her concerts they comprise a factory. She keeps churning out amazing, popular concerts. These musicians are factories. We also, within our work environments, we might use phrases like, wow, we are on fire, we are en fuego, we are in the zone, we are in a groove. So whatever word choice, whatever phrase in this word cloud that might inspire you to embrace this metaphor of a factory and embrace this image and embrace habits where it just optimizes your team's workflow. I believe that the metaphor of a factory is valuable for your team because you care about all the same things. Your team cares about its speed, its level of waste, its autonomy, its sustainability, its ease, its level of automation, its quality, its fidelity. But we might use slightly different language. When we experience a bottleneck or use that term, we probably realize that we are hurting our speed. Bureaucracy, too many cooks in the kitchen, hurt our speed. A culture trait of fear in our innovation factory, in our expectation factory, reduces our quality. Interchangeability can hurt our speed, so forth and so on. The first insight of this slide is that these just aren't different. Yes, the language and the terminology is different, but it really is all about the speed, the quality, the waste, um, the traits, the integrity, the value of our teamwork. And the second insight I hope you can take away from this slide is that those conversations about culture, um, yes, they can be very ambiguous. And I'm hoping that this language on this slide will reduce the ambiguity for how culture absolutely impacts your bottom line. And I hope that this slide will help you to confidently reduce tolerance for toxic cultures and toxic behaviors of low discipline and low empathy. Because with a better backbone and courage and confidence that you know that poor habits and poor behavior affect the bottom line, I believe you will be less forgiving of the toxic behavior, and you'll know how to navigate, neutralize, and correct for that toxic behavior. One comparison I will make with what I hope to transition with these materials, I will compare it to the transition from waterfall to agile. For those of you of a certain age, you might remember back in the 1990s where the methodology that innovation teams used, it had low frequency. Projects were lumpy, and go live events were months and years apart. Agile fixed that. We now have go live events that are close together. Go live events are high frequency. This is one, and we could identify more, but this is just one culture trait that Agile aimed to fix for innovation teams and fix uh, because of the limitation of waterfall. I'm trying to do the same thing. I believe at the moment teams are experiencing high marginal cost, also known as communication traffic jams. And the variable that I am trying to tweak with these materials is just like building a train system that would reduce the marginal cost of commuting in a city. What I'm trying to do is reduce the marginal cost of all the moving vehicles in innovation teams. High marginal cost. It cripples the speed of the ensemble. It harbors franticness. It harbors fatigue. It harbors burnout and VUCA. For anyone not familiar with this acronym VUCA, it stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And many innovation teams, I believe, have a culture of VUCA at the moment. And I'm trying to convert VUCA into discipline, empathy, and elegance. Another interesting music analogy here, if I've got part of my symphony operating at a certain frequency, and we got another half of my orchestra uh, producing at a different frequency, that's really difficult to synchronize. So that plays into how fast can we really move if we're operating at two different frequencies. Let me pause because I've been talking nonstop, and I don't know why my voice dropped an octave tonight. I'm feeling like I'm talking like a bass. Does anyone have any reactions, good, bad, or ugly, questions, or should I keep motoring? Let me ask one question right now. Okay. Thank you, Ronnie. Optional audience participation with just low, medium, high, L, M, or H in the chat. Those problems that I mentioned, communication traffic jams, we have folks who want decision rights without decision responsibilities. The project success rates are not improving. If the spirit moves you, put in the chat low, medium, high, L, M, or H. To what degree are you experiencing those problems? Okay, cool. Thank you for that. And I will continue sharing. So before I propose what a healthy synchronized symphony looks like for our teams, let's get 2020 on what an unsynchronized factory can look like. The first culture trait is meeting gridlock. Here you see someone's calendar. They're double booked, they're triple booked, they're experiencing meeting gridlock. I think this is rampant. Uh, and trying to coordinate, synchronize an infinite number of meetings is a fool's errand. It is impossible to really synchronize an unknown and infinite number of meetings. Likewise, with messaging, many of us are experiencing email overload, messaging overload within Slack or Teams. And sometimes we're just a volleyball game of service tickets. These are the two communication channels that are causing communication traffic jams. So, one lever to control the flow of work is meetings. And I believe the company is Shopify that over the last couple of years has put rules on meetings saying there's no meeting under three people and there's no meeting Fridays. And I don't remember all the little criteria that they tried to establish. And I've not recently followed up on the efficacy. Has that been successful for their, I don't know, profitability, for their turnover, for employee morale? I personally think that is the wrong lever to have your hand on to control workflow. Similarly, a second lever to control flow, some teams and some organizations are restricting emails, saying you don't have to respond to email after 5 o'clock, or you cannot. Um, okay, I get it. But I'm absolutely not convinced that that is really going to solve the problems that we have. It restricts the flow. Um, and so the material today looks to a third lever for us to control this workflow. So many of you are familiar with the RACI framework, and I'll give a refresher here in case anyone could use a refresher on what RACI means and why teams use it. It's four adjectives in the English language, and those four adjectives are responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. And using RACI, a team would inventory along one axis all the work that it expects to complete as a team. And the other axis inventories either people's names, team members' names or stakeholder names, or roles or titles. And then the intersection of these two axes, uh, the team would assign a letter, R, A, C, or I, to denote the nature of contribution for that body of work. Um, so my conclusion after using a RACI framework for more than I don't know, probably 10 or 20 years, um, my conclusion about the RACI matrix is it gets a flurry of activity at the beginning of a project, and then after weeks and months, the RACI dies a quiet death. Teams only reference it casually. There is no sustained or sustainable discipline. It harbors a lot of ambiguity because I don't know what's worth documenting. I don't know what is one meeting, what could be 10 meetings. Does it harbor complexity underneath any of these items? Or maybe it's just like a switch in a vendor tool. There's a lot of ambiguity going on in a RACI matrix. It lacks teeth. It has had at least 2 decades to solve those problems that that I mentioned on the earlier slide. I believe the RACI framework gives us a false sense of governance. So what the material tonight aims to do is says, hey, you infinite things, you meetings and emails that you're infinite and you're intangible, those aren't risky. Those are going to happen. Instead, this material says the only thing I am willing to formally manage is whatever is finite and whatever is tangible. To use a performing arts analogy, I'm not going to manage your style. This is a dance analogy. I'm not going to manage your style. That's up to you, your authenticity. But what I am going to manage is your mechanics. If you are dancing salsa, I'm going to insist that your mechanics are quick, quick, slow, quick, quick, slow. And we could talk about tango and we could talk about swing, East Coast or West Coast swing. If we take a music making analogy, if you think of a violin player, this material does not aim to manage the expression of any of the team members. But what it does do is it aims to manage its technique. So if you can imagine a violin player and all the variables going on with their hands, their chin, their chest, technique absolutely matters. And where this material leaves off, it governs technique. It does not govern expression. This material does not govern flair, your personal flair. Again, it's not about governing authenticity. It's really about being fabulous at the fundamentals and being magnificent at the admittedly mundane. So a symphony has two ways that it's finite. It's the number of chairs, the number of instruments, and it's the number of notes that each player might play. There could be a lot, but they're not infinite. So here we have actors, and in our teams, we have actors, we have stakeholders, we have team members, and we have actions, which in the English language, the part of speech is called a verb. So let's think about the RACI framework, which has four adjectives, and because it is that false sense of governance, what verbs could replace these adjectives? And let's not lose sight of our desire to be quick to market. And in one of the books behind me, there's a GE executive named Beth Comstock. And my favorite quote from her book is, "The pace of change in our world will never be as slow as it is right now." So I think most of us would easily nod at that quote. But here's my concern is that if you treat speed as a leading culture trait for the sake of itself, I believe you end up with traffic jams. But if we treat speed as a lagging culture trait and we think, well, what upstream? What would have to be the prerequisite for us to be fast? Well, if it's a bunch of people, you must be synchronized. And so that's why I am obsessed about synchronization. And I hope that I can persuade you to be nothing short of obsessed with synchronization. There's a American automobile executive from the last century named Lee Iacocca, and this is a quote I found from him. And his quote, "The speed of the boss is the speed of the team." It didn't land on me very well. So I, without any solicited help, may he rest in peace, I rephrased it as the synchronization skill of the boss is the speed of the team. And tonight I'm going to credit that quote to amateur musicians everywhere. The synchronization skill of the boss, that is the speed of the team. So let's get to the verbs for a symphony that stands a chance at speed. I translated the adjective responsible to the word draft because what's finite, it's not meetings, it's not email, it's structured documentation. It's not meeting minutes. It is structured documentation that we already knew its title. It might be roadmap. It could be project charter, process flow, training approach, training materials, test approach, test scripts. These assets go through, well, instead of managing them with four adjectives, can we manage these with five verbs? The five verbs are draft, review, revise, approve, distribute. This not only linguistically kind of has a rhythm, but also it reminds me of a conveyor belt. Here comes a project charter, and we're going to draft it, we're going to review it, we're going to revise it, we're going to approve it, and we're going to distribute it. And there's this conveyor belt. It's a kind of agreement factory. It's a kind of expectation setting factory. Five verbs in your project plan. Accomplish everything you wanted out of your RACI matrix. But wait, there's more. You also can track a duration estimate that a RACI doesn't support. You also can track percent complete so that we have a clear sense of momentum for each station of this expectation factory. I love the quote: execution's two best friends are simplicity and transparency. The five verbs are not simplistic, they are simple. They produce transparent output. And when a team says we're going to govern with these five verbs as a default, um, just that stance, that decision is a very transparent, unambiguous decision because teams stop guessing. Ooh, what does that verb mean? Why do we have 30 different verbs in our project plan? Why do we have 40 different verbs in our task list? Execution's two best friends are simplicity and transparency. This was an attempt at humor where if something gets caught, the five verbs help teams to detect stalled work. And because I tend to spend too much time on this topic, I'm going to start to move a little quickly so we can get on to the other agenda items. Because I see it is, I think it's 37 after the hour. This is what the five verbs looks like in a project plan with three assets. This is the conveyor belt. Here comes a project charter. Here comes a training approach. Um, and everything else evidently is not worth documenting. It's not worth collaboration. Uh, Consider doing it at the pub because whatever is not worth governing with five verbs, it probably also doesn't need keystrokes. The five verbs, it's a racy with teeth. It is ruthless discipline and it helps minimize surprises. And your speed depends on your traffic, your synchronization skill, your healthy friction versus unhealthy friction. And it helps, the five verbs helps to minimize surprises. If you're wondering, what would we throw these five verbs at? This slide is the asset portfolio, and it proposes 60 or so, it's probably a little bit less, assets that I believe, and there are a couple exceptions that actually we'll cover a little bit in this session. But the default is all of these assets, they're worth five verbs. If they were worth a RACI and they're worth documenting, they're worth governing with five verbs. This is a template to see what an individual project schedule would look like, where the verbs, it's always the same thing. But again, in the interest of time, I will skip over this and you'll have this in the PDF if you would like to look at this later. The five verbs helps reduce boiling the ocean, asking a centralized planning and tracking function to track everything under the sun. Don't ask your centralized planning and tracking function and people to do that. Formally plan and manage only what is worth five verbs. A culture of meetings, a RACI matrix. These are completely understandable because of this short blue bar. A culture addicted to meetings and emails has low upfront cost. It's understandable that this is attractive. But when we start complaining about meetings and meeting gridlock and too many emails, it's also understandable because of this tall orange bar. It is high marginal cost. For a culture willing to lean into structured documentation and default to the five verbs, that tall blue bar is why structured documentation is comically unpopular. People despise structured documentation because of its high upfront cost. Very understandable, that resentment. But when we have a completed, approved project charter, process flows, etc., why do we enjoy the benefits of healthy structured documentation? Because of its low marginal cost. So this mini micro econ lesson with upfront cost and fixed and marginal cost, this can apply to a city, a growing city, that might start implementing public transportation, a bus system or a train system. A small town should have the cost profile on the left, right? Low volume, low discipline, low. We don't need left turn lanes. We don't need right turn lanes. All that stuff would be overkill. But as a city grows and it has more volume and it needs organization, like maybe we need a left turn lane, maybe we need a right turn lane. God forbid, maybe we need an overpass. As any organization grows in scale, the volume increases, it can justify the cost profile on the right. So if you're an innovation team that doesn't, if you just don't innovate much, I believe the cost profile on the left is for you. But if your team has aggressive and ambitious innovation goals, I believe the cost profile on the right is for you. This slide is just listing more culture traits for each cost profile. The chart on the right is a license for low expectations. Ouch. The cost profile on the right is a license for high expectations. I think that's exciting. Sign me up. And on the topic of what work is easy and what work is difficult, and this is another quotation for our teenagers. Do what is easy and your life will become hard. Do what is hard and your life will become easy. You can ignore the laws of gravity, but the laws of gravity do not ignore you. And your team can ignore the laws of marginal cost, but the laws of marginal cost do not ignore you. So I'd love to pause and I want to change topics. But does anyone have any reactions, questions, any thought bubbles, good, bad, or ugly?
I've been enjoying it so far. Hearing hearing your thoughts about how to approach things differently. So I just think it's pretty interesting.
Okay. Okay. Good enough for me. I will keep motoring again with hoping to wrap up within 5 minutes. Again, these are in the PDF, so you can browse these at your leisure. I am going to talk about two of the five templates. I hope that the slide I am skipping over right now, a workload report, is self-explanatory to append to your weekly status report. As Thea mentioned at the start of the call, I believe that this framework, I learned about it as I like, I wish, I wonder, and I felt it had a little bit of a gap. And so over the last few years, and for my previous team, I added the phrase, I hope. And my goal of this framework is to uh, foster a psychologically safe environment for anyone, my peers, my manager, those who report to me. I want to know what they're feeling. I want to know the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so I ask them, I don't mandate that they finish these sentences every week, but I do mandate that they look at them and reflect on them. And if and when they have a compliment to give, they should finish the sentence, I like. If there's something in their rearview mirror that they have maybe some regrets, they can finish the sentence, I wish. If there's something in the future that is nagging at them a little bit, they should finish the sentence, I hope. And if there's an innocent question, a politically sensitive question, such as, I wonder if we have a product owner. I wonder if we have a project sponsor. Hopefully, you are in a psychologically safe environment where you can finish the sentence, I wonder. I believe this is worthwhile weekly. In a recent event like this, the audience reaction was someone said, "Yeah, quiet teams are scary teams. You got to worry about the quiet ones." I believe this shapes a culture of stylishness, glamour, morale, and psychological safety. I believe this for companies that are worried about survey fatigue, this framework is a kind of low footprint engagement survey. And these effectively, it's the prompt here in the era of AI. This is effectively prompt engineering for questions, for ideas that you should be asking long before any exit interview. The approachability menu. This is the last topic or the last template that I'll cover tonight due to time. Um, about 10 years ago, my company, my employer, bought some software that was a bolt-on to Salesforce.com. And with that software purchase, we poached one of their employees. It was a big deal. 18 months later, that person was fired. And I started asking questions to myself. And the questions I asked included, were they surprised? Were they coached? Were they coachable? Were they approached? Were they approachable? I knew that person and I knew her three managers over that 18-month window. Again, I knew her three managers over that 18-month window. And one of my conclusions was this was not a followership problem. This was a leadership problem. Could I create a tool that minimized the chance of this sort of surprise happening again? Can I create a tool that says, you don't get to give any kind of feedback you want? Any valid feedback must be according to that cliche, oh, we just don't communicate well. So let's create a tool that is about approachability for three communication channels. The first communication channel is meeting etiquette. The second communication channel is email etiquette. And the third communication channel is structured documentation. So you see three examples here under meeting etiquette and email etiquette. And the other decision I made about this template is anticipating people who would say, I just don't have time. I don't have time to give feedback. Dude, I'm asking for a check mark. Do you want more or less? In the infamous words of the genie in Aladdin, for those of you of a certain age remembering that 1992 movie, have some of column A, try all of column B. And so that song, those song lyrics, partially inspired me trying to create the most simple feedback mechanism I could imagine to try to minimize unhelpful and counterproductive feedback, um, and maximize just the behaviors of how we communicate with each other. I believe this tool is worthwhile monthly. Weekly would be overbearing, but you cannot let these behavioral problems persist for a quarter. So I said, I'm going to recommend this as a monthly habit. It's a shared habit. This is a small hinge that swings a large door. This template fosters a culture of two-way accountability. It fosters a culture of psychological safety and positive morale. And the mischievous side of me says, you know what? Sometimes you just don't like your coworkers. And that's too bad because you don't have to. Um, I use this tool effectively asking, I know you hate me, but what do you want me to do differently? I will skip this very rigorous lessons learned template. Um, you'll recognize the top row, you'll recognize the headers because there's a pattern in the problems. And we need to keep turning the screws on ourselves to minimize regurgitating the same sins. This template is the basis for my default speaking session later in the year. I'm going to be calling it Choose Your Own Advent. No, Choose Your Own Culture. And so it will map these culture traits to the templates that help boost and improve the culture traits that you see here on the left. And that's effectively the starting point for that session. These are all the documents. And this effectively is a table of contents for my second book. And I need to wrap up. So in the arts, the performing arts, improv, music, theater, and dance, they possess amazing culture traits so that we can imitate them to optimize our collaboration. Let's not be naive. We are competitive human beings. Can we look to the performing arts to inspire behaviors that harness our competitive energies and turn it into ambition on behalf of the ensemble. And let's not forget who pays the bills. What does it mean at the artist audience intersection? And what does it mean for us as innovators, for our stakeholders, our users, and our customers? So these word clouds are just more language. It's effectively a glossary of what I hope you'll recognize in the performing arts. And I hope if you don't see them yet in your culture, you will adopt habits, including the five verbs and these templates that will help you see all of these culture traits in your team. Teams for the last couple decades have used this term competitive advantage, competitive advantage. Hey, Western Hemisphere, I think we can check the box that we are a hyper competitive culture. I believe that the frontier of innovation, the frontier of profitability, is it goes by a different word, and that term is collaborative advantage. Imagine if you're a member of a team where you close your eyes and you realize we collaborate better than anyone. That's my kind of team. Again, if we had more time, we could dig into all these word clouds that are specific to each of these arts. And imagine a new hybrid. Instead of remote or in office or waterfall and agile, what if we had a new hybrid that asked, "Hey, are we on script? Because that's okay. Are we off script? Also okay." But not knowing is not okay. And we have metaphors that are fun and familiar, and the financial profiles of these arts is attractive. When we ease these traffic jams and untether ourselves from this addiction to back to back to back to back to back meetings and reply all syndrome, we can convert our frustration factories into an elegant expectation factory. When we do this, companies will be more confident to innovate more, increasing innovation demand. Companies will have more ambition and hunger to hire, raising our innovation supply. And so this is my hope for this material, is that it actually improves the job market, because I believe right now too many companies, consciously or subconsciously, they look down at those traffic jams and they think, why would I put another car into that mess? So tonight's session, we talked about an expectation factory. We talked about empathy as a form of lubrication for this factory, and I covered, I think, 2 of the 5 templates. And again, I hope you'll look at the PDF and contact me later if you want to discuss the others that I just didn't manage my time perfectly tonight. Um, those templates, they are small hinges that swing a large door of culture. And I hope that, I showed you 4 performing arts tonight. Maybe just pick one. Pick the one that inspires you the most. And I hope you will find the culture traits to imitate. Again, they're fun, they're collaborative, they're empathetic, um, and they're profitable. In the appendix, there are more materials for any skeptics. These are the problems I am trying to solve. And I'll leave you with a couple quotes. One of them ends with how we started. This material's target audience is exasperated innovation professionals. And some of you are absolutely not exasperated, and your status quo is absolutely fine. I understand that. And for you, nothing will change, or nothing needs to change until your status quo is more painful than a transition. So the takeaways, I hope that when you find yourself in verb sprawl, you have a task list or a project plan with 20, 30, 40 different verbs. I don't think you need all those verbs. I think you can reduce your noise and you can reimagine the RACI matrix as 5 verbs in your project plan. I hope you will use these templates as a kind of prompt engineering to shape your team's culture. And I hope over time, this material will raise your confidence, your self-esteem, and your humility to be able to lead any kind of team, because now you have a better sense of what does a symphony look like? What does good look like? And what does a traffic jam What does bad look like? There's a timeless quote by Patrick Lencioni: not finance, not strategy, not tech. It is teamwork that remains the ultimate competitive advantage, both because it is so powerful and so rare. With all the fuss about artificial intelligence over the last year, I get it. Um, I strongly believe that AI does not solve our most valuable problems to solve. I believe AI does not solve our most important problems. One person's point of view. So, whatever your place is on your org chart, you might be senior, you might be middle, you might be junior, you might feel junior. You can lead from anywhere. Leadership is taking people elsewhere for their benefit, where otherwise they might not have gone. This is a quote from a former CEO of Motorola named Chris Galvin. So, to whatever degree you like some fraction of this material, grab a friend, stay psychologically safe, banter about what you like and what might be a path of least resistance so that you can crawl, walk, run toward a people centric methodology. Your code is going to be fine. And again, be comfortable and confident that you can lead from anywhere. This is me on LinkedIn. These are my books. And we have 90 seconds for anyway. Back over to you, Randy. I welcome your reactions, good, bad, and ugly, questions, ideas, and there's no expiration date on that request.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, Robert. Thea did have a question. And Thea, you can go ahead and ask.
Oh, is it in the chat?
Yeah, it
It
is in
is
the
in the
chat.
chat.
Okay. Yeah.
It
I understand it, but go ahead if you want to elaborate, Thea, please.
no, you
Okay.
Oh,
understand it.
So yes, you're exactly on track. So I'm sure you can imagine someone including incredibly important and valuable ideas and decisions in an email that, I don't know, belong in the project charter. They belong in the process flow. They belong in the
sure.
training materials. Why are you, because don't expect us to have to go back to someone's email box 6 or 12 months later with people wondering, oh, well, is this the last email? Did anyone else agree to it? That is why this metaphor of an agreement factory, where do these agreements need to reside? Two wrong places. These agreements should not reside across 20 smart people's heads, and they should not reside buried in people's mailboxes. So by process of elimination, the ideal residence of these agreements is the collaboration space, just like an improv team isn't about themselves. They are about the space, the collaboration space. And that's what, these documents, I absolutely hope they feel administrative and petty. There's value in that simplicity. It is the collaboration space. So when we have disagreements, it's about what's on the page. I'm not demonizing you. I'm just saying, hey, bullet 6, I think it should be bullet 3, not the end of the world, right? So that is why I think this very simple, straightforward, just downright plain emphasis on the documentation, the culture traits are they're just numerous to enforce collaboration.
Gotcha.
You,
Thank you.
you did not expect that long-winded answer.
That was
Yes,
a really good
please.
question.
Yes,
And just to
feedback.
make sure everyone knows what the question was, it was under email etiquette and usage. But it was in quotes, belongs in doc, and the question was, does that mean the material should be in an email?
Yeah,
And
It means it shouldn't be in an email. It should be in the document that we all share.
yeah,
that was a
Gotcha.
yeah,
really good
Thank you.
question.
yeah. Randy, thank you for that because the recording, anyone who's listening to the recording, I don't know if they see
Yes,
do they see the chat?
I don't think they see the chat,
I
but
don't think they see
just
the
in
chat.
case.
Okay.
And then Jay Reed had a question. Could I give a little feedback
Yeah.
for people?
Ooh, should we stop the recording or should we keep recording?
Let's.
I'm half
Keep
Oh,
joking.
going.
I'm half joking.
I hope we could. Oh, okay, I was gonna say I hope we can keep recording.
No, okay, I see them taking themselves on and
Uh-oh.
off mute repeatedly. This is going to
Yeah.
be interesting. I'm ready.
Um, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask your first name?
James,
James. Cool.
what I notice here, um, is your usage of the English language
Yes.
is higher than normal. Let me put it another way. I'm a student of the English language at a low level, and I use the right tenses, I use the right verbs. And as a first line or second line manager, too often I run into people who say something like, I don't know about all this stuff, man. Just tell me what I need to do.
Yeah.
And so I'm concerned about pushback on your high level of English language.
So did I let you finish? Go.
Yeah, yes, I'm
So,
finished.
so when you say high level, I just want to make sure I understand what you mean by high level, as in it's not specific and it's ambiguous. Like
No,
the,
you have
okay,
many acronyms,
acronyms. Yes.
and many of them. I mean, like 10 in the last hour.
Okay, right.
And I would be inclined to publish a document that has all those acronyms to my staff.
So you would be kind, you would be what?
I would be inclined
Inclined. Okay.
to publish a document with all those acronyms, and which I would say, when I use these acronyms, here is the explosion of the acronyms, the meaning.
Yes.
And I expect you, my reports, to understand this and be able to talk to me using these acronyms.
Love that. Amen.
I think I would get pushback.
Your staff would politely decline and say, "Hey, I see your request to be knowledgeable and competent about these acronyms, and I decline." That word, that acronym VUCA, racy, not interested. Is that the pushback you would expect?
Not interested in being that precise, not interested in appearing to be that educated, and so on.
Yeah,
I usually manage first line workers, which are the workers. Okay,
yeah,
I
um,
don't manage managers who operate at a little level, a little
yeah,
higher level.
yeah. Yeah, your point's well taken. I haven't, I don't think I cross paths with many people who, like, on their face, just uh turn their nose up at acronyms. But your point's well taken. That absolutely could happen where I might meet someone. I will cross paths with someone someday. Um, I don't know. I'm trying to think company names that, KFC. I would ask them, do you have a problem with KFC? And if they have a problem with KFC, that stands. And I respect their stance, that they're not fond of acronyms and they don't see the value of acronyms. And I would accept that and move on. Is that fair?
Yeah, but um, I'm
And
just thinking how I could implement, what I saw here in the last hour.
yeah, so if there's one thought here, when I mentioned the phrase five verbs, and I mentioned the term verb sprawl, I didn't show you the word cloud of like 30 different verbs. But let me even back up. How close are you to project planning?
Very close.
Okay. So how would you characterize its structure? Is it pretty fluid and you would call it a task list, like in Word or Excel, or is it more structured, like you might use Microsoft Project or Smartsheet? How structured are your plans?
Mostly the first that you said.
Okay. And can you already imagine the verbs that you have in that task list?
Sure. I mean, I don't know if I can repeat them right now, but when I write one or write a project plan, or I'm involved in writing it, if you put my work down that for the last 2 years, you'd see many verbs repeated. I mean, you'd see the same set of verbs.
The same seven verbs.
Set, S-E-T.
Oh, set. Okay. What do you think about this word cloud on the right? Are these words that you would put in your task list?
Okay. Okay, just a second. My chat on the right, verbs.
So these are verbs that I collected from my former employer, to let my team know which of this stuff is worth putting on paper.
Well, that's a good set of verbs. Um, I would use half of them
Yeah,
occasionally,
yeah.
and a
So
few others quite regularly.
Yeah. So I would my recommendation, my very mild recommendation, is that there's a time and place for exotic vocabulary. A project plan is not that place. There's a restaurant called the Cheesecake Factory, and it's got not 30 items on its menu, it's got 30 pages. It's got crazy variability. And some restaurants want to have that crazy variability. And I have been on a project that leaned into verb sprawl, and I knew that, and they were quite senior people, and I leaned into the verb. What I use, there's a negative connotation when I say verb sprawl, right? But I knew that part of their sense of purpose in those meetings was to exercise their creative vocabulary. Uh, I could have put that in the project charter to say one of our success factors is that we get nuts in our project plans with our exotic vocabulary. So I've been in those environments. I think it just slows down planning, and I think it slows down interpretation of the plan. But whoever's boss, they get to decide word choice. The RACI matrix never splintered off. Maybe you might add one letter to the RACI framework or two letters, but the RACI matrix never turned into 20 things. So there's an analogy there that I believe, just like the RACI tried to govern with four adjectives, that I think is one strength about the RACI framework, is that there's like four tiers. There's not 20 tiers. There's not the RACI matrix does not have adjective sprawl. It has four adjectives. And so the framework that I'm recommending, it's got approximately four, as in five verbs. But if a team feels that part of its identity is to exercise exotic and creative vocabulary, okay, you still have a factory to run. But if that is a success factor, I own it, and Godspeed.
Okay, let me just throw one more sentence here.
Please.
For the last 35 years, we have been working with H-1B.
Mm.
Are you familiar with H-1B visas?
I know that the English might be a second language or third language because some of those folks speak five languages.
Well, the key point is some of those folks barely are competent in English.
Okay.
And I mean, I've had people who are not at all competent in English. So as H-1Bs, that is a part of our culture right now, and it's growing every year.
Yeah.
The number of new H-1Bs coming in.
Yeah.
And you cannot use sophisticated English language
Yeah.
with these people because they simply don't have the English language capability.
Yeah. So is that a vote for verb sprawl or a vote for five verbs?
I don't know. I have to make my documents a little bit more simple than I would like.
Right. Right.
So it's maybe different verbs or a vote for less verb sprawl.
You would like less verb sprawl.
Yeah.
I accept that.
Okay.
Um,
But I think we're talking about only 5 verbs, right? That's pretty good.
yeah, it's so James, I welcome reaction, whether it's tonight or another time. I think it's a great topic. Uh, do verbs matter? Do the quantity of verbs that we put in our formal planning, does it matter? And I think the analogous question, or the analogous thing for a factory is how many stations do we want in our factory? If you have five verbs, I would argue you have five stations in your conveyor belt. And if you have more verbs, you have more stations. You have more handoffs.
Do you mean 5 verbs rather than 3 verbs?
Five verbs rather than four adjectives of the RACI, and five verbs instead of thoughtless 40 different verbs in a task list. I think 5 feels about right. One of my former employees, uh, he pushed back a little bit and he wanted the word audit. And so for about a week, we standardized all of our, because again, this is about standardization, factory, and flow. And so for about a week, we added a step, audit. And after about a week, he said, it's not valuable enough. We can do what we need to do with review and revise. Um, but James, are we still on the same topic or did I veer off?
Yeah, we veered off a little bit, but that's okay. One other thing came here as you're talking about massaging these. One of the things that I do when I have just about finished a document. Now, this could be a project plan or something like that. And my documents they're not 20 pages. They're 4, 6, 8 pages.
Yeah.
Okay. They sometimes expand to go 10 pages. But
And
for each paragraph,
probably on this slide right now, but yes, keep going.
for each paragraph, I put in a carriage return at the end of, or at the period, okay? So, and I'm doing a review of my document. I now have every sentence in the paragraph on its own line.
Okay.
And now I look at those and I decide which one is the topic sentence of the paragraph. And I need to prove that every sentence that I've got there is involved with the topic sentence, or else it doesn't belong in this paragraph.
Amen.
And you'd be surprised how many in my own writing I find sentences in there that I throw out or move to another paragraph. So that's a technique I use to clean up my writing.
Mm. Yeah, I like that. It took me 55 months to get this first book out the door because of situations just like that. So I'm down with your struggle.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for the questions.
Sure.
I see. I'm looking at I'm not in a hurry to leave. Does anyone else have any reactions? Good, bad, ugly questions? Did this material make you jump back to a dance lesson and say, oh, okay, maybe? Or are you a singer? Did you play an instrument? Were you in a play? Um, if we can, it'd be nice to, I mean, this is serious stuff, right? Methodology is serious. It is about our mental health. It is about our bottom line. It is about teamwork and relationships. But let's find the fun. The art of improv would demand that we find the fun. So if we can end this session by looking for some fun, again, I just look to the performing arts. So if anyone tonight, did you see yourself in any of the arts? Do you want to go out and yes, please.
Oh, I mean, wait, you mean did the session and make us think of certain arts that we experienced in the past, or
Yeah.
did we relate? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I was gonna be a professional dancer back in the day. So I really enjoyed a lot of the comparisons to the orchestra and to dancing. And so I thought that was cool. But yeah,
Okay.
I studied dance, ballet, modern jazz, all that kind of stuff. So
So you get elegance.
yeah.
You get discipline
Yeah.
because your style is not free. You had to have a lot of discipline to master the mechanics of the dance,
Mhm.
which is not the same as the style of the
Mhm.
dance. And if you're on a ballet team, others may be doing the same mechanics,
Mhm.
but your style was your own. It was
Mhm.
authentic. And so what I'm trying to, I hear a lot of grief given to, notes. None
Mhm.
of us BAs want to be note takers. I get it. But let's clarify. If you don't like documentation, is your work worth documenting? Are you willing to say, no, 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 no. My work isn't worth documenting. 9 to 12 months from now, we won't need to remember this stuff. So there's a difference between the mundane
Mhm.
of the 5 verbs. And what this methodology proposes is that you are magnificent at the mundane. You are fabulous at the fundamentals. And the
Yes.
fundamentals, it's just the 5 verbs. Everything else, don't prohibit it. Give it your blessing. Uh, but you don't know if that's durable. You don't know what's worth collaborate. And so another benefit of the verb approve is you effectively have a micro sponsor Because now if you don't have a micro sponsor and your team is scared like, oh, no one's signing up for the verb approve, then I would argue then it's not worth documenting. If you don't have a project sponsor, you wouldn't proceed with the project. If you don't have someone's name next to approve, it's effectively a micro sponsor. So then don't document it. Do that work at the pub.
Mhm.
Don't even do meeting minutes because you don't know how to structure meeting minutes. Like tells me you don't know how to title the information.
Mhm.
So the five verbs, as simple as it is, there's a domino effect. There's a cascading effect of positive culture traits, because it it hinders wasteful documentation. If you don't have enough people, let's take it as a race. If you have something in a racing matrix, but you can't populate your R, A, C, and I would argue, don't do the work. And if it's the same way with the verbs, if you can't sign up, hey, who's going to sign up for this verb? And if you don't have someone next to draft, crickets.
Mhm.
You need a name. And
Mhm.
just like in an orchestra, you need a butt in seat for your saxophone player, you're a violin player, you're an oboe player, you're a drum player. You need people assigned to these instruments, or you cannot play the symphony as you expected. I see a hand.
I have a I would like to be sure I understand. Whenever I saw your presentation the first time, Robert, I understood you were talking about five verbs, but I was looking at those verbs and I was thinking those verbs don't fit my project. But you're really talking about the documents being the dancers and the verbs being the energy to those dancers so that you can create the performance. Because it's the documents that either they're worth doing or not doing.
Yeah.
But if they are worth doing, who's going to do them?
Yeah.
And so you're giving them the energy.
Yeah.
Got
So
it.
thank you for that. When you had that reaction, Thea, and if this is a longer conversation, we can have it later. But when you said that these verbs don't fit your work, let me take one small step back and then I'll take a huge step back. So, and one of them is going to sound more snarky than I intend, but you and I are buddies. So, uh,
Buddies.
so the small step back is if not those verbs to formally manage, what are the verbs? Because I might have a blind spot. I could learn something from you about what verbs fit better. And if I take a huge step back, the snarky question is, does your project have verbs? Because someone who
Okay.
pushes back against the five verbs, my first question is, well, then what are your verbs? Some people might ask the political conversation, what are your pronouns? As an innovation leader, I care about your verbs. Tell me your verbs. And I want you to own the verbs. And then I'm going to put them in the project plan unless you say, no, 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 no. I don't want that transparency of my verbs. Well, I'm just talking about whatever's worth formally managing. It's either formally synchronized or do it at the pub. It's
Right.
formal or it's informal. But anyway, please.
Right. No, once I plugged in that you were talking about the verbs that applied to those documents, it's like, okay, we do analysis, we do software development, we do those verbs work if they're applied to those documents.
Yes.
But those verbs on their own didn't make sense to me.
Got it. Okay, I understand. So the clarification here again is I'm trying to propose that you manage only what is finite,
Mhm.
what is worth printing, because that shit is durable.
Yes, yes. Well,
Everything
once,
else, I would argue everything else is disposable and it's not worth
mhm.
printing. It's not worth putting on paper. So then manage it as such or just don't manage it because it's too fluid.
Well, if that document isn't worth filling out, we don't need it. But if it
Right.
is, it's critical, and we need to know who's responsible for each of those five verbs. So I love that idea. I appreciate it.
Okay. Yay, we resolved. I don't, did we resolve anything? Was this our
Yes,
second
we
fight?
did.
Our third fight?
Yes. Hey, I'll find another one later.
All right.
Randy, thank you very much for hosting this.
Thank you all for coming and contributing. This was awesome. Thank you so much, Robert. I loved this topic and it really got me thinking about a lot of art stuff and how what you're saying makes sense and other, on the business side. So I
If
really loved it.
if we're not imitating a symphony, we sound like shit.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
And it's called we're all over the place. Verb
Yeah.
Mhm.
verb sprawl. Well, now you know now you know the language that says that is a signal. Oh my God, we are all over the place.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Makes a lot of
It's been
sense.
great.
Thank you all for coming. Anything else that we have going on in terms of events? We have, like I mentioned, we have the Thursday, the Tampa Bay. Via's leading their Babak study group. So you can visit the Tampa Bay IIPA.org
Yes.
website to learn
Yes.
more about that.
We're going to be doing chapters 1 and 2 tomorrow. So we're at the very beginning, and we have a lot on YouTube that we're going to be able to feed you, turbocharge your studies with if you're wanting a certification off of the Babak.
That's very exciting, and lots of great educators like Thea on that call. So awesome. And we have a event coming up that we're collaborating with the Bluegrass chapter. You can learn more about that event. It's on May 30th, the same time, 7 p.m. So thank you all. Thank you, Robert, again. Thank you, Thea, for joining. Thank you, Jill.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Lay. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, everybody. Have a really great evening. Thanks again.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.